Hello, I'm Citrus, and you're looking at the Real Grade Zeta Gundam. This 1144 scale kit was released in November 2012, originally retailing for 3,000 Japanese yen. Unfortunately, I forgot how I got mine. In addition to this normal release here, this kit also received a Unit 3 version in April 2013 based on its Green Divers or Gundam Evolve appearance, a clear version of the normal colors in November 2013, a different Unit 3 color scheme in November 2015 based on its appearance in the Gundam Front Tokyo film Competition of New Gundam, a clear version of the same scheme in July 2016, a so-called RG limited color version in August 2017, and a biosensor image color version in February 2018. One of the most recent reprints is the June 2023 batch of the RG limited color version for Premium Bandai US. To have had so many reprints would suggest that the Real Grade Zeta is pretty well liked. Yet despite this, it has garnered a stigma in the West for being one of the worst Gunpla of all time, which I think is wholly undeserved. Older prints of this kit have a gloss black box bottom, which advertises other Gunpla of the Zeta Gundam available at the time, along with the Gundam Mark II real grades. My copy was printed in May 2015, not counting the beam sabers. 11 runners come in the box, of which 2 are multi-injected, including the infamous pre-molded advanced MS joints. The total amount of plastic amounts to about 7 runners worth in 10 different colors. Some parts are undergated, although there hasn't been a special coating version of this kit to take full advantage of it. Here's the assembled real grade Zeta next to the real grade RX-78 for size comparison, and also next to the high grade Evolution Project Zeta and the Metal Robot Spirits Zeta, which I'll be comparing with this kit. Unfortunately, quite some time passed between me finishing the build and filming this video, so some of the specifics are a bit muddy now, but I do know that I like this kit a lot more than the recent HGUC. In some ways, it's even better than the Metal Robot Spirits figure, which is the most premium Zeta Gundam product in this size. But before I get too far ahead of myself, here are the colors I used this time. I think I spent about 40 hours on this build. One of the frustrating points are the stickers on the corners of the wings. They cover a very complex surface and they don't like to stick down. In fact, even in Bandai's official product photos of this kit, they are also peeling up. I tried to fix it a little bit with heat and it seems to have worked, but I didn't pay enough attention to where I was aiming and ended up melting the wing a little bit there. If I were to build this kit again, I think I would just skip those stickers. The build was not particularly straightforward or intuitive, so it's especially important to pay attention to the instructions. A couple of places I'd like to call out. First is parts F26 and 25 on the hips, where the orientation of these pieces is very important, and also parts F30 and 29, which go into the neck elevator portion at only a very specific angle illustrated here. Another tricky part is installing the legs and then securing them with clips F24, which are very tiny and difficult to grip. While transforming the kit, it's also important to remember to rotate the cockpit into the correct orientation, which is necessary to allow this to secure itself either into the nose cone or the waist. Speaking of which, the lock between the cockpit and the waist is actually fairly strong and gives the chest a little bit of rigidity. The Metal Robot Spirits cockpit doesn't have this lock, which makes it a little bit less satisfying to handle. The real grade's neck is currently in its highest locked position, but I wish the yellow collar came up further just so it was a bit more visible, like it is on the Metal Robot Spirits. There's also some flex in the neck elevator, which makes moving the head around feel a little squishy and uncomfortable, but there is minimal obstruction in every direction. In comparison, the high grade's head movement is much more limited and thus less emotive. Unique amongst all three, and I believe all 1144 scale Zetas, the real grade's head also has functional light piping. The arms of the real grade Zeta are the most straightforward part of its body, with double bend elbows, ball jointed wrist, and the usual swivels in the shoulder. The high grade technically has it beat with a very tricky set of joints inside of the chest that allow the arm to move up, come out, and bend forwards and backwards a little bit. But this is a very flimsy structure and over time hasn't really loosened up, even though, as you can see here, the rest of the body has. So it's part of the kit that makes the high grade more dynamic technically, but the way that it is all designed has not held up very well to the test of time. Moving down, we have pretty normal movement in the waist, side to side, forwards and back just a bit, and rotation. But things really start to get strange once we look at the legs. Unlike most kits where the hips are mounted in the middle, on this kit they're mounted to the back. And although this is strange, it doesn't really change much what the legs are capable of. You just have to think about moving them in a different order, if you will. They still rotate at the hip, and they come up like so. And instead of pulling them out, you just rotate the joint, and the legs come out. The best part about this is the real grade Zeta, as a result of this design, has the most intuitive hip transformation of any Zeta I've seen before or since this kit. Pretty normal functioning in the knees. And there is an extension gimmick in the leg that is tied to a cam inside of the knee. You can see by bending the leg forwards, the foot retracts into the leg, and by resuming the normal position, the foot comes back out. This is a much better mechanism than on the high grade, where you just kind of have to push the leg in and pop it into place or pull it down into some various detents. Although on my example, the right leg has a habit of falling out of place. So you'll click it all the way down like this into its fully locked position, but then after some movement, it will have fallen out of place again and you have to click it again. And lastly, my favorite piece of articulation, which is the ankles. You can get some very, very, very wide angles with the feet, which means this kit has incredibly good grounding, which you'll be able to see in some of the poses that I show off later. And despite all the accounts of this kit's fragility, if you give it a shake test, you can see there's some rattling in the legs, of course, because they are the heaviest part of the body, but it's not any more than, or again, simply because the legs are, by the Zeta's design, the heaviest part of the body. One thing I've observed is the joints seem to be very temperature sensitive. So if you want the kit to tighten up a little bit, all you have to do is to stick it in the refrigerator for a little bit. And on the back, the wings lock into the center binder, which is a unique feature to this. And the only place where I've had to glue something is right here to keep these claws attached to the back. There is a soft detent when you push them in the first time, but since you'll be pulling on the wings a good amount while you're transforming it, it does seem to want to come away over time. The accessory spread is pretty narrow, the most notable omission being the Hyper Mega Launcher, which both the high grade and the Metal Robot Spirits include. And I think Bandai chose to not pack it in with this kit for two reasons. One being budget, since at the time of release, this was the first real grade kit to break the 2,500 yen pattern. And second, because the weight and size of the accessory would be very taxing on the shoulder's joints. The Hallmark articulated real grade hands have a joint in the wrist, ball jointed fingers on the thumb, index, and the remaining three, also bends at the knuckles. They can just about hold the accessories, but there is a fixed pose right hand included for gripping everything more securely. This leaves the beam rifle as the only notable accessory, which is pretty large compared to the Metal Robot Spirits beam rifle and the high grade beam rifle. And when it's collapsed, it is also still the largest. I would have liked it if the real grade rifle could have collapsed a little bit further, but it is also, of the three, the only one that has a sight that stows correctly. And the last accessory to discuss is the Action Base adapter. Bandai intends for you to use this with an Action Base 2, which I don't have one at hand right now, so I try to make do with an Action Base 5. The octagonal post is very slightly too large as it comes out of the package, so I had to grind it down on 4 sides in order to make it fit. It holds the figure fine, but I really don't like how this attaches. It goes in between the legs in the front, like so, which means it's just right there, and it's quite hideous because it's gray and extends out really, really far from the body. I think some kind of mount that can go into the back, or at least in the bottom or something, would have been much preferable. And this is the only adapter you get, so this is also the one you have to use for the Wave Rider. The high grade comes with a different but similarly shaped adapter for use in both modes. And speaking of modes, let's transform this now into the WaveWriter. All right, and after some fine adjustments, this is the WaveWriter. I'm going to do another shake test. Completely solid. Pretty much nothing is moving around at all. The tail binder is locked in place. The wings are locked into the nose cone in 4 places here. And the nose cone itself is locked into the rest of the body in 2 places. And the waist and the chest are locked together through the back skirt here. Basically, aside from some wiggle room in how you want to position the legs and the feet and the side skirts up here, this is just one solid piece now. And if you're so inclined, you can complete the transformation by putting the beam rifle on there. But I'm not a huge fan of how that looks. Like I said before, the beam rifle is just a bit too large, even if it's a collapsed state. So I prefer to display mine without it. It would have been nice if there were mounts maybe on the bottom. But you can also see the Bandai never really planned for this to have any other accessories on the bottom of it, because there's really nowhere for, say, a Hyper Mega launcher to even go. And these 3 pieces all come off so you can equip the included landing gear if you like. Of the 3 Wave Riders, this is by far my favorite one. First, the proportions. I think the Real Grade strikes the right balance between the size of the wings, the size of the body, where the legs end up, and so on. The Metal Robot Spirits gets a little bit too small for my tastes, whereas the high grade looks like the Gundam is glued to a giant sled. I also like this transformation the most. It is technically not the most canonically accurate, especially given how the legs move, but the way they just sort of swing up forwards from the sides is way, 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 way simpler than the triple jointed rotations you have to do in the Metal Robot Spirits. And of course, you don't need to have a bag of parts handy like you would have to with the high grade because you don't have to disassemble anything. This is probably, all things considered, the easiest one to just pick up from your shelf, transform, and then put it back on your shelf again without having to grab any extra parts, going into the box, or anything like that. Those of you who've been with the channel for a while know that I actually reviewed this kit back in January 2013, right around when the American batches of the Real Grade Zeta started landing in our store shelves. And I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, but even then I came to a relatively positive opinion of this kit. It is genuinely disappointing to me that over time, I guess because people just had the wrong expectations, that this kit developed such a negative reputation. Gunpla always tries to strike a balance between model kit and action figure, and this is a case that definitely lands closer to the model kit side. There's not much room for error in the build, and you're not going to have a good time if you try to treat this like any other real grade, high grade, or action figure. But if you pay attention, treat it gently, and gives it the respect it deserves, you'll find an incredibly unique building experience with tons of ingenious engineering baked in. By all means, this is not a kit for everyone. I know that a lot of people seek different things from their Gunpla than I do. For me, the Real Grade Zeta completely blows the high grade out of the water. It's not quite as good as the Metal Robot Spirits overall, but for its price, availability, dynamism, uniqueness in build and execution, and transformation ease, this is definitely my favorite 1/144 scale Zeta. If you want to pick one up, these are pretty easy to find because they're not that popular, and very often they end up warming shelves for months, even between print runs. They're usually quick to be discounted as well, so it's pretty easy to find one for well under retail price. So that's all for this review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.